This is Jim with Harvest Harmonics, and welcome to another episode of the Future of Farming Today. And today I want to talk about climate change. Now, climate change, if you were talking in political spheres, is a very controversial topic. In fact, some people will say that, climate change is not a thing at all. It's just not real. And the only people that purport climate change as a problem are these doom and gloom guys that are cherry picking specific statistics, right? Other people say that climate change is a very real thing, and all the way on the other side of the spectrum, these are the guys who are saying, "Hey, we've got 5 years to live if we don't change everything we're doing." Right? But I want to sidestep the political aspect of climate change and just talk about how climate change is affecting agriculture and to what degree it might be. Now, some of the things that we're noticing in terms of climate change, and I talk to hundreds or even thousands of farmers every year from all over the world. So I have a little bit of a perspective in terms of overall from a 10,000 foot view, if you will, what climate change is and how it's affecting people. So first of all, climate change, they have the global warming aspect, but climate change has to do with temperature fluctuations or what we would consider abnormal weather patterns, right? So in one sense, yes, it can get hotter in the summertime and maybe colder in the wintertime, but a lot of times it will shift the seasons a little bit. Like for example, it used to get really cold, here in Florida around beginning of October, right? And now we're starting to see that shift further and further along. So now we're toward the end of October now, and we're still in the high 70s, early 80s, right? Which is, again, this is Florida, so take that with a grain of salt. But in a lot of areas, what you're seeing is the shift away from what we consider the traditional summer months of June, July, August into like, July, August, and September. So the seasons are shifting somewhat. And in some cases, you'll see an early frost too, where you'll have heavy rains, in the beginning of the season where you normally wouldn't see it. Other times you'll see seasonally low rains. In fact, some growers, for example, California, they've been in a drought for the last 7, 8 years. And this year they just got dumped on. They got a ton of rain in the beginning of the year, right? And now they're still, with 1 year, they still don't necessarily have enough to fill the reservoirs and keep, the situation handled long term, right? Down in Central and South America, we've got El Nino, which is an ocean current. It's a warm ocean current that actually affects the rain patterns, and it can cause droughts in some areas where they don't get enough rain the way they normally would, and in other areas they're just getting flooding. In fact, there's several areas, in Ecuador, in Colombia, and some other countries, Chile, where they got flooding, right, and they actually had serious problems with too much rain. Now, some of these are just normal weather patterns, like El Nino and La Nina are two ocean currents that are just a cyclical thing. They happen every few years. But the increase in temperatures and the increase in overall weather patterns can actually dramatically affect crop yields. So when you have a lot of heat stress, for example, and it's overly hot or it's hot for a longer stretch of time, then it becomes very difficult because when plants get stressed due to excess heat, it shuts down the photosynthetic process. It makes it very difficult for plants to generate the energy or glucose that they need to produce healthy growth and healthy fruits and vegetables, right? And in other situations, it can also lead to things like adverse effects due to fungal effects. Like if you have heavy rains when it's warm, you'll get a lot of excess fungus, like botrytis and other types of fungi that can actually kill plants or cause plants to be harmed. So overall, you have to ask the question, well, when we're looking at different climate changes and how things are adjusting, you kind of have to adjust on the fly. And as a farming operation, probably 80% of farming is adjusting to these changing conditions on a regular basis. But if we're looking at climate change as something that's going to permanently, or at least create a much bigger effect due to climate versus than you would normally experience, then you have to take that into consideration when you're planning for your next years. And one of the things that we talk to about farmers when we're consulting with farmers is you really have to look at your soil health, you have to look at the plant health, and you have to look at maximizing the efficiency of your farming operation. Because a lot of times it's the efficiency of your operation that will determine whether or not you can weather the storm, so to speak, of climate change, or whether you're going to have a catastrophic year or maybe just a bad year where you could have otherwise had a decent year, right? And with our crop booster, we really help the plants with that efficiency. We really help the plants generate a lot of energy in adverse conditions. And that can save your crop. A lot of cases, 2, 3 years ago, we had farmers tell us that we completely saved their crop because they had a torrential rain for 5 or 6 days straight. And then when the rain stopped, they had a major fungal outbreak, which killed about 85% of all the plants in the region. With our Kiminasi crop booster, those farms only lost about 10 to 15%. So that's a 70% differential just by saving the crop that was already there. And we have other examples with insects and funguses and other things where we're saving huge percentages of crops that would normally be lost in those conditions, right? So you can't always change the environment. You can't always dictate, well, is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be rainy? Is it going to be dry? You can't really dictate those things. All you can do is sort of adjust what you're doing. But luckily, the crop booster by Kim and Acid Plants really helps give you that window of opportunity where you have a much bigger opportunity to do something about it before a crop gets completely lost. So if you're in that situation where you're worried about climate change or worried about how do you predict what you can do for the coming years based upon this uncertainty of the weather and uncertainty of all these different factors because of climate change, then you really need to look at things like our crop booster. You need to look at things that are going to make the soil healthy and the plant healthy and make those plants more resilient to these different changing factors due to climate change. So if you want to really prove yourself and give yourself the insurance policy that always pays you, which is keeping the plants healthy, keeping the plants productive no matter what the weather conditions are, then I urge you to give us a call at 727-324-6750. Or, of course, you can email us at service@harvestharmonics.com. We actually have a service where we can give you a sustainability consultation, no charge, and we can also explain how our crop booster will fit into that sustainability program so that you're protected against these climatic changes and these fluctuations with weather and other factors. And of course, you're going to get a good crop year over year, and you're going to become part of the future of farming today. I hope to hear from you very soon. We want to protect as many farmers as we can. And of course, we want to help people eat as healthy as we can. So let's work together to make that happen and to make sure that you're profitable now and going forward into the future. Have a great day, guys.